Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Jason Godbey. I'm a filmmaker and content creator based in New York City. Today we're taking a look back at a classic, the Sony A7 Mark III. The Sony A7III is a full-frame mirrorless camera with a 24.2 megapixel CMOS sensor. It has an ISO range from 100 to 51,200, expandable up to 200,800, and it boasts a dynamic range of 15 stops. I've used this camera on a couple of projects along with the promo that you saw at the top of the show. We used it for our documentary, We're Ready to Believe You, Ghostbusters 40th Anniversary. I couldn't get the EOS-R, which is the camera that I had been using for the doc, so I had to borrow the A7 III to shoot Ghostbusters Day, which is a big celebration they do every year at Ghostbusters HQ here in New York City. This was particularly grand because it was the 40th anniversary. We captured some on-the-fly interviews and B-roll of the event. For that setup, I used my small HD monitor and my trusty top handle, mostly handheld, very run and gun, and I thought it performed really well. But let's break it down. The A7 III is small, it's lightweight, but the grip is substantial. If you have bigger hands, you may want to use the battery grip, which does add some size and weight and will also extend the battery life. I would also recommend using a top handle or maybe a cage if you're going to do a lot of handheld work. The screen on the camera is also small, a little too small for my taste. It tilts, but it doesn't fully articulate, and unfortunately, it's not a touch screen like in the newer A7 and FX models. I found using a monitor helped tremendously. The menu system on this camera is, well, complicated. As I mentioned in my reviews for the A7 II, the FX3, and the FX9, Sony menus boggle the mind and frustrate the soul. But it's not that bad once you get the hang of it. There is a function menu that allows you to highlight certain features, and there are plenty of buttons you can customize to allow you quick access for the features you use the most. The A7 III offers 693 phase detection autofocus points, which provides coverage for 93% of the image area. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to test the autofocus fully because I was using a third-party lens, but Sony autofocus has been tremendously accurate, and every Sony camera, even without being able to use all of the features like eye detection and face detection, I still had no trouble keeping my subjects in focus. The camera can shoot in 4K without a crop and in up to 120 frames per second in full HD. For a hybrid camera, this is pretty incredible. I love shooting B-roll in 60 frames a second because it gives me more flexibility in editing, so being able to shoot in slow motion is a must-have in all my cameras. Like its brothers in the Sony Alpha series, the A7 III shoots a wide variety of picture profiles. I used a modified Cine 4 profile, and it seemed to work the best. The A7 III has 8-bit color, so you have to be careful if you're shooting in something like S-Log because the footage may start to break down if you have to push and pull the color too much. If you decide to buy this camera, I would recommend experimenting with the different picture profiles and find the one that works best for you. For audio, there is a built-in mic as well as a 3.5mm input and a headphone jack. I used a Rode video mic mounted on the camera for ambient sound and the DJI wireless system for interviews. Here's a quick sound sample.
Brings me a lot of joy. It brings me a lot of laughs, a lot of smiles. I can watch that movie endlessly.
There's a lot to love about this camera. Much of the design, with the exception of the screen, is pretty ingenious, particularly when it comes to the battery grip. The fact that you can easily remove the battery door and store it in the grip is so convenient. The size and weight is also a huge plus, especially if you're someone like me and you're forced to carry gear on your back. I was also able to build it out with a top handle and a monitor, and that worked really well. It was still lightweight enough for me to carry and shoot with all day. The variety of picture profiles and frame rates is also incredible, along with the low light capability of these Sony Alpha series cameras. The biggest drawbacks are the non-touch screen, the complicated menu. With the exception of the FX3, most of the Sony cameras I've reviewed tend to get low marks when it comes to ease of use, but that's all minor compared to the overall value you can get with the A7 III. So who's this camera for? As of this taping, you can find the A7 III new for around $1,400 US and for around $1,000 for a used model. Compare that to the A7 IV, which does have some newer, better features, but that camera sells for over $2,000. The Sony A7 III is remarkably versatile. I haven't used it for photography, but you can take excellent photos with it. I think it's a great camera for hybrid shooters who don't want to buy two cameras and maybe need to switch from photo to video on the fly. Overall, it's an amazing camera for the price, and the images speak for themselves. Thanks for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
This is the BTRP Media Network.